Hello, my painting companions. Today, I'm painting with Papa. We are going to paint a car. Yes, we are. And that car is going to look a little bit like this car. We're going to try to paint that car to look like this car. You see that? Yeah. And we're going to paint that car to look a little bit like this car. This car is called a Rolls Royce. Yep. So, I started to paint that car, and you see the girl. The girl is doing some antique shopping, and this is going to be the car behind her. You can see I started to paint the wheel, and I started to paint the front of the car. And you can see I started to paint the wheel, and I started to paint that front panel and a little bit of the hood. See? Now I just got them roughed in. I was just starting to rough it in to get ready for you to come and join me in the painting of this car. And I think this car might be the car that brought this girl to do her shopping. Maybe it's the car that brought her. I don't know, but we're going to paint it and we'll see if we can figure that out. Now, we're going to have to do a lot of glazing because you see this car? It's got a lot of glazing in there. You can see me way in the background reflection taking the picture of the car. So I'm going to have to do a lot of glazing on the car. Since we're doing a lot of glazing, we're going to start with a good color for doing that. It's a good color for starting out with, and that is going to be our Viridian. Yep. We're going to draw a line here with our Viridian. Yep. And we just did that. We got a nice line with our Viridian. And we're going to do this. And when we do that, that makes the metal on the car look rounded. So we're going to do that so it looks rounded. We're going to do that a lot on this car because it's got a lot of rounded features. So this car's got a lot of rounded features to it. And we're going to paint those rounded features in there. And we're going to turn the brush a little bit. Then we're going to turn the brush back down. You see how we did that? We turned the brush a little bit and we turned the brush down. So I started with the brush sideways. Then I turned it flat, then I turned the brush again. So I could start with a skinny start, and then go thick, and then go skinny again. See, with this filbert brush, I can do that. I can go skinny, and then fat, and then skinny again. Isn't that something? Yep, we can do that. And sometimes we're going to start fat and stay fat for a while. And then finally we're going to go skinny. And then we can start fat down here and stay fat. And then go skinny in the other direction. Fat, skinny. See how I did that? Now I'm really just going to kind of clean my brush off. Yep. But I'm going to do it inside the car, inside the image of the car, because I want that Viridian in there. Viridian's a good base color. Viridian is a really good base color to use. So we're going to use the Viridian as our base color. Okay. That's not really looking like a car yet, is it? Well, don't you worry, it will. Now, even the hubcaps have reflections coming out of them. So we're gonna use just a thin little bit of Viridian that's left, so we can let all those little reflections underneath come through. You like that? I knew you would. Okay, now I want to work on that bumper in the front of that car. And it's going to be interesting because I don't really have any silver color, but if you look real close, we'll see that that bumper is reflecting some blue and some black and some white. So we're going to have to work on that over here. Now, I think you realize, as I did, part of that bumper is going to come underneath this girl's arm. And I'm just not sure how we're going to do that. It would have been easier if I painted the bumper first and then painted her arm on top of it. But I wasn't thinking of this car when I first started to paint that girl. So now I've got to think about this for a second. What do I do? I think I'm going to have to paint very carefully around her arm and elbow. And then if I get a little bit of the paint or the bumper on her elbow, I might have to come back and repaint a little bit of her elbow over the bumper, because the bumper is going to be visible behind the girl. So some of it's going to be hidden behind her arm and behind her shirt. Let's see if we can work on that. Okay, I'm going to leave some of the blue on my filbert brush because I showed you that there's a little bit of blue on that bumper. So I'm going to try to trace that right around. And it comes about halfway in on the tire. And we're going to get a little bit of the blue on there. Right at the moment, it's looking kind of gray, isn't it? Well, I'm as surprised as you are, because there's blue on the paintbrush, but that's really okay. And the actual color of the bumper, the blue, turns back, and it turns back into the car from the way it looks to us. It looks like it turns back into the car, and it actually comes backwards to us. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge. And now I'm going to switch brushes, because now it's time to do a little bit of fine work. So I'm going to do this fine work with this brush here, and that is called a round, because it's round everywhere, all the way around. It's round. It's not around just around the top like the filbert, but it's around all the way around the sides. And this is a number 2 round. See, you see the number 2 on there? Can you see that? Sometimes it's hard to see. It's a number 2 round. Okay, and so we're going to put a little bit of our, blue and our white, and we are going to come around and make that come around on our bumper here. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this black that I got on my brush, and I'm going to use some of it for the wheel. And that wheel has all kinds of reflections in it. See, I got a little black on my brush, so I'm going to use that in the wheel. And then, since the inside of the car is black, I'm going to just wipe some of that black off. And now, I'm going to go get some more of that blue and that white. And I'm going to paint some more of the bumper. It's okay if you get different color paint on your brush. It's all a process. You having fun there? Me too. Sometimes painting looks like it's just a mishmash, but it's not. You know what you're doing. Now I gotta get a little bit of mineral spirits on my brush. And let me get a little bit more of that blue. And you're probably gonna be adding water to your brush. And we're going to come around with a little bit more of that blue. For the bumper. I know you're laughing at me because I keep getting a little bit of black on it, but that's all right. It's okay. Remember I showed you this bumper's got a lot of little reflections happening in it. So this is really working out for us. Sometimes it's like a happy accident. And we'll get a little bit thicker blue on there. And I just keep working it, and see, it's starting to look more bluish. And we're going to use up a little bit right in the middle of the car. Grab a little bit more of that blue that we were painting with, and we're going to bring it around a little bit more. Okay, now I got to straighten out the fender of that Rolls Royce, because I kind of messed that up a little bit while I was painting the bumper. See, I was painting the bumper, and this is the black fender. So I got to get a little bit more black and see if I can straighten out that fender a little bit. Yep. We sure are. Now we're getting a little bit of the bumper in there and the fender. Starting to look like it should. See, the fender is black and the bumper has got a little bit of blue, and it's going to get some white reflections in there, and it'll get all kinds of reflections in there. But since we have this black on there from the bumper, I think what we need to do is bring it down a little bit. Because it does come around. It does look like it wraps around the bumper, but it doesn't. It's really the bumper. It's really this bumper is wrapping around the fender of the car. Sure is. Now we're going to drag a little bit of that white paint that we put on there, and that's helping to create the reflection that we have in our car. This car's got a reflection in it. Okay, well, it's starting to look like a car. At least it is to me. I hope it is to you too. Okay, now let's have a look at our car. Can you see the car? You see the tire of the car? it's got black around these white walls. These are called white walls. And there's black rubber. And now we got to paint that black rubber around the white walls that we did not paint in our painting. So, 1, 2, 3, go. We're going to start with a little thin line, and then we're going to turn our brush sideways. Then we're going to go back into a thin, thin, thin line. And I'm not perfect at doing this, so I think I might have to paint some of my my white again. And I got a real, real thin line. Well, I did that one pretty good. I know what you're thinking. I need a little bit of practice with that. Yeah, well, I didn't want to tell you, but I hurt my shoulder a little bit the other day. And so I'm not painting real steady, but that's okay. Even if you're a little bit sore and hurting, you can still paint. Sometimes that'll make you feel better. But you're right about one thing. I'm going to have to touch up my white wheels again because I didn't do the best job with that. Maybe it's time for me to work with my left hand. Can you work with both hands? Okay, we're getting there. We are getting there. Now I'm back to working with my right arm. It's kind of sore, but I can do it. Okay. We're getting there. I might have to come back and paint a little bit more white where I made this a little too rough here. But that's okay. Now, the black over here looks a little bit gray, but that's really okay because it's on a different part of the tire, so it's reflecting just a little bit differently. Okay, you see how we did that? Yeah, and we'll work on it as time goes on. And now we're going to go with a little bit of black over here. And why am I swooping it down and curving? I'm curving it like this because this car has a little bit of curvature on it. Some of the metal has some curvature, so we want to show that. And I know I'm painting it out real thin to where it's almost transparent. That's okay. That's what we want to do. This way we're going to be able to show a lot of different reflections in that car. You're starting to see some little reflections I have in here. Now let's look at the original car, which is so nice and has such beautiful reflections in it. See? See how that car has all those beautiful reflections in it? I don't know that I'm going to be able to make it that nice, but I'll still be able to get some nice reflections in my painting. Do you remember how we did that? We're painting on real thin, and we're going over our backing. And our backing is helping to provide the reflections. Have you been enjoying this episode of Painting with Papa? I imagine you are, because you're doing something a little bit different. You're painting a car. And I like painting cars. I like painting people, but I like painting cars too. And we're going to paint other things besides people and cars. We're going to paint maybe boats, planes, trees, clouds, animals. You already painted some animals when we did Noah's Ark. Remember that? Yeah, we painted animals. We're going to paint more animals because we're going to go back to Noah's Ark. Should we put any animals in this painting? I don't know. Sometimes it's good to work on a couple paintings at the same time, because when one painting is drying, then you can go work on the other one. Sometimes when we paint, we put a little too much paint on, so we have to learn how to take it off. Well, there's a couple ways to do that. I put a little bit too much white up here. Now, you can try to use a little bit of water, not a lot, just a tiny bit of water on your brush if you're painting with watercolors. And you can try to take some of that off, but that might not work. So we're going to try it at first. And we don't want to try too hard because we don't want to make it all drip all over the place. So we're just going to put a tiny bit of water, a little bit of water on the brush, and we're going to brush it out. And some of that is coming off. Not quite as good as I wanted to, but it's coming off. But if you can't get it to come off, this is where I'm going to give you an idea. Sometimes you should take pictures of your paintings while you're painting them, so you can go back and paint the area that you covered with paint just the way it looked before you covered it. There's always a way to fix your painting. If you made a little mistake, like I did, you saw me make a mistake with my tire. I had a nice round white here, and then I kind of messed it up over here. But I'm going to fix that. That's half of the fun of painting, is fixing when you make a little bit of a mistake. All mistakes that we make when we paint, we can fix them. And sometimes the mistakes aren't really mistakes. Sometimes we look at it later and we say, you know, I kind of like that mistake I made. I'm glad I made that. I'm going to just leave that in there. So now you're watching me. And I'm taking some of that white off. Okay? and I'm wiping it on my canvas. But what I'm really going to end up doing is I'm going to end up taking some of the green paint and some of the brown and the black, and I'm going to end up filling this in the way it originally looked. I'm just going to give you a little taste of that right now. Now watch. See, I had brown underneath here. Well, I'm going to put some of that brown back, just the way it was before. Or at least pretty close to the way it was before. You see how I'm doing that? I'm putting it back. That's one way of taking some of that white out of there. I'm just putting it back. So I'm lowering this because I made this white too wide. You'll do that sometimes. Sometimes we make little mistakes and we make something a little bit too wide. We can go back and fix it. That's half of the fun. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of Painting with Papa. We're going to do more. We're going to paint cars. We're going to paint animals. We're going to paint fish. We need to paint fish, don't you think? We haven't painted any fish. Okay, have a blessed day and click to like and click to subscribe. Thank you. And one more thing. Brush your teeth, but with your toothbrush, not your paintbrush. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Painting with Papa. So click to like and click to subscribe. Thank you. Oh, and don't forget to clean up your brushes and clean up any of your mess and say your prayers.